Good evening. This is the Raleigh Finance Committee meeting of March 11th, 2014. The time is 7:20. Call the meeting to order. And the first item is to review the minutes of February 11th. Has everybody reviewed the minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do I have any comments on them?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion, minutes are approved. Third item is discuss the liaisons. Does anybody have any updates on liaisons?
The water department is working on their budget, and there will be discussion at their Thursday night meeting, but I don't know where they stand on that right now.
Okay. I don't have anything on
If I
the,
could add on the water department, actually, the fiscal team is meeting with the acting superintendent on Thursday afternoon to try to gather some information, find out where they stand, and discuss a number of things with revenue. So hopefully
There
by
will be.
Thursday night, they should
Okay.
have a good draft ready.
Okay, good.
okay. I don't have anything on the Council on Aging. Anybody else?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to the fun part. Discuss and review fiscal 15 budgets. We all received the budgets in emails, and hopefully we've all kind of gone over some of them, most of them. Start off with the town moderator.
Can I just ask a couple questions before we start?
Sure.
I know last year with the personnel board changes, some of the funds to cover that came out of reserve. Is this year, are all budgets coming out of the tax revenue and, just basic funding that the town will receive?
Yeah, so the budgets that are before you right now have been approved by the selectmen, fall within the guidelines that we set. And then this year, the selectmen gave the departments a little flexibility on the expense lines. Some of the expense lines have been level funded so much that it's not practical to maintain them. So, Dave will discuss anything that's not level funded, that's been approved in the set that you have. So they're all within the guidelines that the selectmen set 6 weeks ago. So nothing's, changed from that.
Okay.
We're confident we can fund everything that's coming through, and that's before you right now. So it's either, and the wages are following the guidelines, which, unless they're union contracts, which we expect, we have 2 contracts that have been settled, and they're very similar to the non-union wage increase, which is a 1% cost of living, and then there's a 1.25% spread between the step movement, which will happen on July 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's look at the town moderator. Request for 100, and last year appropriated was 100.
I move we recommend this budget.
Okay, have a recommend,
A second.
well, is there any discussion first, or, no? Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor of approving the town moderator budget?
Aye.
Aye. All right, move on to assessors. Okay, basically about a 1.87 increase. Their current expenditures to date are in line with the what's been appropriated for 14. Any questions on the assessors?
No?
Okay. Hey, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
I'm making a motion to approve the
Okay.
assessors.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And next is treasurer collector.
Okay, why is there a decrease in the administrative assistant wages?
Uh, Good question. I don't
Is that
know.
a new-
In
New person?
In fiscal 13, the current employee started in March 2013. So I'm not sure if we had a vacancy for a number of weeks in that position, and then the hours were cut back to 15, I think, in that office. So I think that's why it's gone down.
Yeah, FY13 was a transition year between when Jackie left and all kinds of temporary appointments.
Okay.
That's why it was, the actual was dropped from 29 down to 11.
Yeah.
And then for FY14, the current year, it went back up to 17,758. And she's reducing it a little bit for this year, so it's no increase, it's actually a little small reduction.
Yeah, a little
this year.
reduction, yeah.
So now they should be, everybody's in place and everything is straightened out, so. And the regular other pays that were within line with recommendations.
Okay, I noticed that the they had as a line item record archiving for 5,500. That seems to have disappeared, and we have this tax title expense for 10,517, and which makes the total of 181,737. Doesn't match up with the monthly appropriation report of 176,720. So I don't know what's going on
I
there.
don't know if there was an encumbrance or something, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And the data that I use is based for fiscal 14.
I guess I don't understand your question, Larry.
Well, in the monthly appropriation report, there's a total of 176,720, which has as a line item the records archiving of 5,500, but doesn't have in there any of this tax title expense of 10,517. So I don't know what happened there.
Okay, records archiving is an article, so that's off the omnibus budget, it's not part of the budget. That was
Okay.
an article that we approved at last year's town meeting.
Right.
That's not part of the operating budget of the town. So it's off budget, and it has its own,
Okay, so then we have.
separate appropriation that's not
Okay.
part of the department budget.
Okay, so where's the tax title expense of
Okay,
10,517?
the DOR likes us to just separate that out, so it's actually, it's on the third page, so it's just booked separately for the DOR satisfaction. It's easier to read it this way in the budget. So you gotta realize, one is an accounting, we're trying to, you're comparing the accounting records to the budget records, and they're not always in sync. So, but it is part of the treasurer's budget, so we just include it in her department, it's her responsibility. You're looking at accounting reports that just show it on a different page.
Okay.
It's on page 3.
Page 3 of what?
Of the monthly report.
Oh, okay.
So it's just not shown in the same place as the budget.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the accounting books are maintained in a different manner than what you see in the budget.
All right, so then where does the 9,500 for tax title recap? Is that also part of Karen's budget?
No,
Is that tax title expense? Yeah. How much is it for?
Well, there's one line item in here for the 10,517.
Yeah.
But then there's also another line item for tax title recap for 9,500.
So, yeah, that's not part of the omnibus budget. So you're looking at accounting records and you're comparing it to the budget, and I think that's where we're having some problems.
Yeah, they don't go together.
Yeah, there's some data on the accounting records
Mhm.
that you're not gonna see in the budget.
Because
Like
they're articles.
and
Hmm.
recap
Right, I can see the
things.
articles, okay.
Yeah.
Because I can see where they
You know,
wouldn't be.
that article for record.
Right.
Yeah, so it's, the budget is, that we got here are all the lines that are appropriated at town meeting.
Okay, well, I still have a question on it, but that's,
Yeah,
I'll settle that myself with,
You can,
get
yeah,
my,
we can ask, you can have Karen explain
Right.
what she does with that particular line. But that's not
Hmm.
part of the budget package
okay.
for the town meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the treasurer collector's budget.
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right, any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, aye. Okay, town council. The only question that I have is that at the selectmen's meetings, it seems that you're discussing litigation all the time. And we're keeping that at a level funding or level liability is,
Most years, we have a lot of money left over in that account. This year, we're not gonna have much left over because we're actually using it. We always have a line item that high so that, to cover, what
Right.
we've got right now is a bunch of litigation that goes back, some of it goes back 10 years. And it's all coming to fruition in trials currently. So it's just a matter of, the money's there, and right now we need to spend it. And there's no need to increase it for next year, because hopefully this stuff will all be done, and we'll be back to the point where we can, that ends up being a lot of money in free cash. But you have to have that much in the budget just to cover yourself.
but I can see that, I just don't know if there's enough.
Yeah, I mean.
You're only talking,
this is just-
4 months before we go
I guess
into,
you gotta take our word for it that, it's being spent down, but for next year's budget,
Right.
we're requesting the same amount.
Looking at over the past 6 years, I sat as a selectman on the board, some years you spend quite a bit, some years not that much, so it all balances off.
right,
Because a lot of years when we come into May and June, when different departments are requesting transfers, we'll take, if there's money left over in this account, we transfer it to some other department that's short of money. So we need it this year for litigation. A lot of it's gonna, maybe most of it's gonna go for litigation. There won't be that much available to transfer somewhere else, but we feel confident that next year's legal bills are the big court cases that are happening right now, and hopefully by July 1st, most of them are gonna be settled,
Mhm.
go back in limbo, so that,
This is one of those unusual years.
yeah.
okay,
Like I said, there's cases that go back 10 years, land cases and planning board cases and stuff like that. That's what we're dealing with right now, that they've taken a long time to win their way through multiple years to win their way through the court system, so we're just getting stuck with them all
Right.
at the current time.
And again, like I said, Larry, some years minimal,
Oh.
and then other years,
I don't
like this year is
No,
that's
one in the-
right, I mean, that's what, my concern was that, just, this year just seemed an awful lot, I didn't know whether that would roll over to next year, but,
As Dave said, this is a high
Right.
water mark, for litigation case.
okay. Any other questions, comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Okay, have a motion to accept the town council.
A second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Personnel Board.
Pretty straightforward. I like the big budgets.
These are the easy ones.
I know.
Yeah.
Number 99.
I make a motion that we accept the personnel board's budget of $399.
Okay,
And I'll second it.
second. Any other discussion or any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Conservation Commission.
There was a note on the detailed expense, and I wasn't sure what NOI fund was, but that's what increased the expenses. I mean, others reduced, but that one went from 300 last year to 750,
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I have the
I don't
same
know what
question as far as
NOI
NOI is.
So,
That's a notice of intent.
Filing from account.
Fine. That comes from the
So that's,
applicant.
it's, a special account for application fees for, under the State Wetland Protection Act.
So how does that correspond to office and mobile for communications?
Well, we have a full-time conservation office that's open 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And, the conservation agent is responsible for not just, accepting and reviewing and working on the Wetlands Protection Act, applications that come in. We have the state law, and the town has a wetlands bylaw, and there's also a number of other wetlands-related, applications and environmental reviews that have nothing to do with the State Wetlands Protection Act. What the law does allow is if there's a fee for an application of the State Wetlands Protection Act, you can go in an account that's not the general fund, and you can use those funds to defer expenses related to the administration and enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act. So it's a very narrow amount, so it's not, the agent can't just say, well, I can use it to buy, use it for all these general things, because not all of that's going to be for that specific wetlands protection. So while he can tap into that, he really has had a budget that hasn't moved at $1,622 for the whole year. And so, the selectmen have, thought about it and realized it's a very small budget for a full-time office, and while he can use some of the NOI funds, we do have to supplement that, especially now, the stormwater, permit from the EPA is a whole other, huge amount of work that's got nothing to do with the wetlands protection. So this office and its requirements have evolved over the past 10 years or so. So now there's probably gonna be more work related to stormwater than Wetlands Protection Act filing fees.
Yeah, basically, they're all office expenses. I mean, just
I know.
stamps alone have gone up, he's only asking for, $428. I realize it is 26% increase, but I mean, his expense budget for the year is $1,622, which I don't know how
Yeah.
he's getting by with that.
I just didn't understand the asterisk and what the NOI funds had
Yeah,
to do, but
it's-
that was last year's, and it sounds like some of that was funded.
Yep, he does use it to the
From-
extent he can without,
Okay.
exceeding the limitations of that account, the purpose of that account. So if there's seminars and it's related to wetlands protection, he could charge it to that'd be one example. But now we have him going to so many stormwater, actually the selectmen's expense covers that because he's going at our request and he doesn't have the money for it. And that's the big thing now, compliance with that.
We've
Okay.
actually asked him to be the open space.
Yeah.
He's doing all the work on the open space committee, which really is kind of defunct at the moment, so we can get grants out to the Girl Scout property, so.
Oh.
He takes on all kinds of projects and
Yeah.
anything to do with that stuff, and
Land use
it's
management.
just, I'll tell you, I don't know how he does it, but he makes do with next to nothing, so.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the Conservation Commission budget.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, zoning board of appeals. Okay, any comments, questions, discussion?
Seems to
Yeah.
be pretty straightforward.
How much you can ask for.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the zoning board budget?
I'll make the motion, we approve zoning board of appeals.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agriculture Commission. Another budget buster.
This one didn't give any information for previous years?
You mean as far as what the expenses are?
Well, what was the year to, maybe I'm just not seeing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, this goes with, sorry. Too much paper. Okay, never
Okay,
mind.
got it. I make a motion, we approve the agricultural commission.
Okay.
How did the percentage, is that just a typo on the form? It says 104%.
Oh, it's been crossed out and it's zero. He's
Okay.
at 1,000 and 1,000, so.
Right, I agree, it should be 0,
Right.
but
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, it must have done something with the column.
Okay, any other discussion? Let's see, I had a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And emergency management.
No, it's all the same as last year. I make a motion, we accept the emergency management.
What is that anyway? I mean, I don't know, what is?
The
it's a
emergency
stipend.
management.
Who does?
Fire
chief.
Fire chief.
Fire chief does it?
When the
Oh.
storms and disasters, he's the one in charge of all those kinds of
Oh, okay. So the,
situations. When something goes on, he coordinates with the state,
MEMA,
Massachusetts Emergency Management, the bunker over in
he's our
Framingham.
contact.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
REMA and
okay.
and the state is MEMA.
Yeah, and the federal is FEMA.
Yep.
Matter of fact, Peter, almost every bad snowstorm comes through, or there's going to be a high wind storm, or talk about hurricane coming up the coast, we'll meet over at the fire station and bring all the different department heads to the meeting, and then we talk about, and that's his
Oh.
job. Okay, and he coordinates that between all the departments.
okay.
All right, any other discussion? Have a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion to accept the emergency management.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Inspection Department. Is the Inspection Department and Inspection Services Department two separate items?
Yeah, it's all the same. The building inspector, electrical inspector, plumbing, gas inspector, the alternate inspector. And then you got the secretary's wages over there. Basically, the wages are all within the guidelines, and the expenses have increased because just about every single year for the past 5 or 6 years, at the end of the year in May and June, the inspectors, because of the amount of activity, this year's been a huge increase in building development in town. He runs out of money, and we have to transfer him in money from one budget to another to account for mileage and postage and all those kinds of expenses. So this year, Board of Selectmen approved just to make the expense budget actually fit what he spends in a year, rather than having to go back and transfer every year money in.
Now, were some of
Right.
these expenses offset by fees for the inspections?
Oh, he pulls in, I think, he's got like well over $100,000 in fees already this year.
But that goes in to
That goes
another,
in the general
General
fund.
fund.
And then, so he more than makes up for what he spends.
And there's been a lot of changes to the building code, and we're on the international code or something now. So there's been a number of seminars he has to go to the plumbing and the electrical have to go to other training and seminars too. So there's just been,
So, but
a
if
lot of
he's,
expenses out of this department. They're part-time, but they're really busy. We
So
have people
why-
looking for them all the time.
why would you have all that for the general fund, and if there's so much more than what's on this budget, why don't you have more budgeted for this department then?
Because we try to keep it as lean as we can.
But you know, you just said that you have like $100,000
Yeah, I mean, it's
from,
traditionally, it's been lean and mean, and we continue to do that, and the fees just, I mean, right now, for instance, the fees from the country club project alone are, I think they're well in excess of $70,000-$80,000 at this point, so.
Then you've got the new development
Yeah,
up
yeah,
off of
and
Main
there's a-
Street.
Right.
I talked to the building inspector last week, and the last fiscal year, he had 11 single-family residences, new residences in town. This year, he's at 54, and that includes the condominium projects, but I mean, it's just right now, the economy's coming back, and
Right.
you look around, and there's buildings and building projects, not just new houses, but
Right.
additions and renovations and things like that all over town, so and once again, for what he does, it's a relatively small increase.
Right, and it's like his mileage travel expense has gone from 2,400 to 3,000, and the cell phones from 200 to 1,200 from last year. That was from last year's
Yeah, his cell
breakout.
phone was traditionally way underfunded, and he just brought it back up because he lives off the cell phone.
Right.
Talking to
And
contractors
on the
in the
road,
office,
sure.
he's out in the field all the time. so
Right.
his cell phone
Right.
is an absolute necessity.
Well, that
It's-
expense over 12 months isn't much.
No.
No, it's not. No, it's
It's,
not.
it's
Once again, we get
it's gonna
we
hit.
get a big bang for our buck
I know.
Yeah.
when we do these things. It's
Yeah.
amazing what these people do with it.
And this is
The amount of money we
considered,
give them.
public safety. It's in the municipal program area of public safety, so they are on call if they had to be. And I know we've had calls here in this office on a Friday afternoon. Somebody's needs some gas, installation put in and an inspection, or they're not gonna have heat, and we'll track down the plumbing inspector and they'll go out on the weekend. So it's not, they're on call.
We kind of told him to increase his expenses. I'm surprised that he only increased them this much, to be perfectly honest with you. But he says he can get by with it, so we'll see next year.
Okay, any other discussion? Have a motion to accept inspection budget?
I'll make a motion, we approve the inspection department.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to shellfish. Another biggie. Okay, any questions? Do I have a motion to accept Shellfish Commissioner's
I'll make
budget?
that motion.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Shellfish Constable. Any questions? No. Have a motion to accept Shellfish Constable
I'll make the motion
budget.
to approve.
Okay, Jenny has the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Library. Question I had is that they have let the self-check workstation, there's a maintenance contract for that, but I didn't see where that came about in last year's or this year's budget. Does anybody know anything about it, how much it cost, or?
Where do you see it?
On, I guess it's their page 3, maintenance contract on our new self-check workstation. I think that's where the people can check their books in or out, from what I remember from one of their meetings. But I don't know how, where it came from, or how much it cost, or how much it costs to maintain.
Wasn't it an article last year to buy that?
I don't remember that.
I
No.
don't remember that.
No,
It's
the library had it.
It's part of a capital
Yeah.
improvement borrowing from a few
think
years
so,
ago. So I think she probably just procured it, and just hasn't had it online, is my understanding, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
It was purchased a while ago. The appropriation was from a while ago under borrowing, and I think she just purchased it maybe this fiscal year. I'm not sure if it's set up.
I
And-
can call her and get some details.
Yes, we do.
Sure.
Mainly part of the automation processes that they're doing over there, though. People every,
Right, I know they had to move some of the
Conjunction with all
stuff
the other
around,
libraries.
but I don't know that much about it.
So, yeah, the first year is covered by the warranty.
Mhm.
So, and you're looking to see where it's represented in Form 3? The expense breakout, is that right?
Well, that's where it's called out that fixed. They've got a note there, a fixed cost based on shared expenses among 36 member libraries, and also includes new this fiscal year
Yeah.
maintenance contract on our new self-check workstation.
Yeah, what portion of that 19,000 is for the self-check?
that could have been something that the Friends helped them purchase.
Yeah,
also. They're always
Yeah.
giving them money for
I
it.
just don't know. So if you could.
Well, I can find out when it was
Right.
funded, purchased, and what the
Okay.
maintenance contract is.
And then also on Form 3, I think the 1, 2, 3, fourth column over is fiscal year 15 rather than 14.
Right.
And then I have a question as far as the utilities being level funded. I mean, is that realistic?
We have to go by what she's requesting, so I would say that
She jumped up in fiscal 14, if you look at 13.
Right.
And
Mm,
and
right.
that coincided with keeping the library open a little bit extra.
Mhm.
That came into that funding. There's some additional staffing, and so, I'm guessing that she's
Mm.
okay with that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they get funding from a grant from some,
And state library,
but they also get
grant.
money from some kind of fund in town where a portion of it goes to council of
Yeah, well,
aging,
they
and a
have
portion
the-
comes to the
they
library.
have the
is the Friends, and then they have
Friends
the
and
trust.
there's a
There's-
couple.
Yeah, there's a couple
of trust
I
funds they-
don't think they draw too much from that, but.
No,
Well,
but
mainly, I think Debbie hit it right on the nose when she said that they increased it last year, and it's probably adequate. So I know my light bills at home haven't gone up too bad in the last year, so lights are kinda, and heat.
They're on
we're
gas.
using gas,
They're
which
on
is pretty
natural
level
gas.
funded,
Which is,
and so
cheaper.
apparently she
I don't know.
Mm.
may have, she feels anyway that the
Yeah.
amount is.
Could you
low,
just
so-
check with her on that? I mean, I'm not disputing it. I'm just, I look at my bills and I've cut back, but the cost keeps going up.
She also, over the years, has been very frugal in terms of being energy efficient and putting out.
Oh, yes.
She's right on top of those kinds of things.
No, I mean, yes, she does a very good job, and overall, I've attended several of the events at the library and all, and found out that I don't have a smartphone. Nothing about the user, please, but anyway.
So do you want to hold this?
No, I
one?
want to hold this until,
I make a motion that we hold the library budget.
I'll second.
Okay. Whether we have to vote on it or not, but anyway, let's vote on it. All in favor of holding the library till next meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Veterans.
Yeah, that reflects the increases. It's directly by state law, we're responsible for the payment to veterans that are eligible for veterans benefits. The town has to pay those. And we go through the veterans agent, and this we're basically by law required to fund.
Right.
There's a lot of veterans getting a lot of benefits at this point because of the economy and so on and so forth. So this is one of those budgets we really have no control over. It reflects what we're required by law to pay for the veteran service.
And the fiscal 14, at this point, is sufficiently funded?
You have no way of knowing.
Well, we won't know
Well-
till the end of the year.
Well,
But at
the
this
current
point-
expenses are 51,799, so it's in line with what they should run for the total.
Okay.
That's one of those, if we get a couple of new
Right.
veterans between now and the end of the year, then we'll have to turn around and appropriate
Right.
more money for
I
it.
was just-
If we lose a couple, then there'll be some extra in
We,
the.
we may be before you for a reserve fund
Right,
transfer.
I just think if you, knowing where we are right now versus what the
Mhm.
what the appropriation was, it gives you some indication.
That's why we just need a little more buffer. I mean, I think we're running pretty tight right now.
Okay.
We may be before you at some point.
But the 7% increase is,
Yeah, I think so, because the people move in and out, it's hard to say. They move to Ipswich, that's Ipswich's responsibility. So some of these people are younger, the veterans are younger, and they're moving, from different places in search of jobs and things. So it's not always, so we do have some older veterans and spouses of deceased veterans that are, have been in the program for a long time, and we expect them to be there, but it's the younger ones that actually have a higher budget, operating budget. It costs more, and they tend to move frequently, so.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other discussion? Okay, do we have a motion to approve veterans' budget?
I'll make the motion that we approve the veterans budget.
All right, have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Memorial Veterans Day.
And this one here is an increase in the Memorial Day and Veterans Day expenses related to flags. We've been advised that there's a law now that we have to buy Made in America flags that are more expensive than the Made in China flags. So that's why we reflected a 50% increase. And they have to reflect the cost of flags, basically.
Mhm.
Are new flags purchased every year, or are they?
Yeah, these are the flags they use to put on the individual graves
Oh, okay.
within the cemetery, and we also use it for
So
the
to
town
buy
flags,
Town Common,
which we buy every year too.
if they get tattered,
We hope they last a year, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but every year we get new flags from Memorial
the
Day.
flowers at the Star Garden, the Raleigh veterans, plant them, we pay for the, geraniums and things.
And the Girl Scouts recycle the flags. In the fall, they go in the cemetery and remove them all, and then they pass them out to people at the Memorial Day parade.
That's,
That's nice.
There were no expenses to date, is that typical?
Yeah, because
Memorial Day is
Memorial
coming
Day's
up.
coming up, so all that money will be
No,
spent
yeah, but,
in the next few months, next couple of
Okay.
months.
So there's no real expense for the Veterans Day?
I guess not.
No, we really don't. The only thing we do for Veterans Day is the light department goes around and puts up the flags on the poles on the main street. But we don't have any expenses as far as, other than that. So this is all for Memorial Day and, basically it's Memorial Day more than anything else.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the Memorial Day
Okay.
and Veterans Day budget.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Handicap.
that's almost a placeholder budget. We really haven't been spending any money on handicap services. Everything's in place, and
You know, once in a while, we need a sign, handicap parking, or,
so it's just basically a,
something
Okay.
particular to American with Disabilities Act.
Right, something to, we'll say if we needed some big
yeah, it's a
expense
really
to
a
have.
placeholder more than anything else.
Okay.
Just if we need expenses, or if, you know,
Right.
a large expense, we got a place we can put it to transfer out of the reserve fund or whatever.
Right, okay. Any discussion? Have a motion to accept the handicap budget.
I'll make the motion.
You have a
I'll
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brad Street property.
That's the same, that's a standard $1,000 use, some of the grass cutting, and if we have minor maintenance issues over there and stuff, so once again, it's more of a placeholder than a big expense item at this particular time.
Right.
Make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion
I'll
to
second.
accept. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The $97,000 decrease, does that go into the budget to offset all of the wage increases
Well,
and everything else?
It depends on, for instance, the capital interest account, well, for the 5-year bond, it expires in 2014. That's out of the regular budget. That money goes back in to be reused. The fire engine, the pumper truck is being paid off as of this fiscal year. That was an override or a debt exclusion, so that money.
Right.
Just
It
disappears.
it just disappears. In fact, we'll be looking for a ladder truck, which, if that debt exclusion passes, will kind of replace the debt exclusion that's expiring for the pumper truck. So hopefully people will see that and vote for the ladder truck. On a debt exclusion, it just disappears.
Okay.
What's MWPAT?
Where do you see that?
Water Pollution, Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust.
Okay. That one had a
And
big
that
increase.
interest, actually, we're gonna move that out of this budget. It should be in an article, because it's not paid for out of the town budget. And this may be resubmitted if there is a borrowing that's gonna take place in the next fiscal year. We'll have this, if we do a borrowing at the special town meeting that's effective this fiscal year, we need to fund the first payment in fiscal 15. So we may be revising this and may be coming back.
We're working on a capital expenditure article for some vehicles and different building repairs and so on and so forth. It isn't finalized, and we anticipate that will be an article at the special town meeting, which would then require a debt payment in FY15. So that's what she says is, would have to be revised. So this, I guess, really gives you an idea where we stand right now,
So
but I wouldn't vote on anything.
Let's just
It's
set this one
probably won't
aside.
change.
Okay. Okay, we got late this afternoon, or I got late this afternoon. Some more budgets. I haven't had a chance to go over them.
I've not had
We
that.
didn't
Okay.
copy them, Larry. Sometimes I get ahead of myself and say,
Okay.
I just wanna get it out there, but, we realize you need
Yeah,
time to look at
that's
it,
all right.
so we can copy them, get them ready for next meeting.
Okay. All right, so we'll wait for those till next meeting. Speaking of which, when do all these budgets have to get approved? What is our deadline?
Well, probably by the first week in April, first and second week by April is, there's so much going on and unknowns with the school assessment at this point. And I think the selectmen wanna, explain a little bit about what's going on with that. I know we've been getting the emails out. You got a copy of the selectmen's letter to the school committee that they presented during the hearing. So there's so many things that we're trying to pull together at this point, that can affect the deadline. I don't know if you wanna
Well,
explain a little
it
bit.
really boils down to what when we have to print the warrant. And
Yeah.
we basically put things together, and you will be voting right up to the day before we have to send the warrant off to the printer. And if in fact you don't have time to make recommendations, it'll be recommendations from the floor if there's articles, et cetera. So
Right.
It's tight from here on in, it's tight, and
But do you have like
say
a
with the
drop
school
dead
budget,
date
depending
for
on
the
what
printer?
schools do tomorrow night,
Mm-hmm.
we may have to come back and take a look at, how we're gonna fund things and where money's gonna come from, so on and so forth. So right now, it's really, these kind of budgets are set, most likely aren't gonna change, but there may be, other areas where we have to make some
What do
adjustments.
we have,
and
like, in reserves right now? Do we have, like,
We're
monies
waiting,
that
we're
we
waiting
can
for free
tap
cash to
into
be
for-
certified.
do we have an idea of what we have?
We got the other big if is snow and ice, and it's gonna snow again tomorrow maybe, so all these things are, right now, I wouldn't even wanna give you a figure because it's a pure guess, because until the state certifies our free cash, we think we got one thing, and who knows what else we got, but those free cash will not affect the operating budget so much as it will other stuff we wanna do over and above the budgets of the
And
various departments.
to add to that, tonight we had a tri-town meeting up in Newbury with the three towns. And Newbury voted to request that the school committee put up their vote this week and put it into next week on the 22nd, okay? And so that Senator Tarr is coming to speak, and also Representative Mira. We're very unusual in Triton because we have 3 representatives and 2 senators representing us. So next Tuesday night, we don't know exactly where it's gonna be, but we will have a meeting and have Senator Tarr there and maybe Representative Hill, and also, I know Representative Mira will be there. So, again, we don't know what the budget for the schools, what they're gonna vote. Right now, if that went through, they would approximately take about 83% of our new growth in tax levy. That's a big chunk out of the town.
I mean, right now, we're guessing,
But their special needs went up a lot, like, I was just looking
Oh, yeah,
quickly at
I-
the expenses, like 25% of the increase is all special needs, which they're mandated
well,
by the state to,
the problem we
so-
have is that we have available to us
Yeah.
a 2.5 increase on the tax rate, which is, we know what that is in terms of dollars. We're estimating new growth, and between the two of them, we're estimating we'll have somewhere around $600,000 available in additional funding. The state funding at this time appears to be level funded for cities and towns. The schools are getting a small amount. So the problem is we got $600,000 in increased revenue available to fund our entire budget. Triton at this point is telling us they want $500,000. Whittier budget is increasing by $38,000. So that's $538,000 that's going to the schools. That leaves us about 60,000
Yeah.
to fund everything else. And what Bob is saying is we're trying to get Triton to, Whittier, we're really, we don't have anything really to say with that. It's just, the assessment is what it is, and we're not gonna be able to change that. We're trying to convince Triton that, to be fair, they take approximately 50% of our tax revenue every year. So therefore, if our revenue is increasing by 600,000 and we're trying to keep them at 50% of the revenue increase too, and maybe it can go a little bit above that, but the problem is when they take such a huge chunk, we got increases in insurance and expenses and, just the minor things that you've seen tonight is minor. When you get into other budgets, police and some of these others, there's some major expenses, as well as buying, capital, the borrowing article for the capital outlay and stuff like that. So we've got some major expenses. If the schools are gonna take everything, And the problem this year is Triton in past years, and I've been here with some of you years past, Triton and the towns have cooperatively worked on the budget and basically come to agreement every year, so that there's a little controversy. This year, and Peter knows because he got cut out of the meetings, that they've been a real lack of communication on the part of the schools with the towns in terms of what our needs and what our available funds. We have to build a budget on what money we have available. The schools this year has taken the attitude that they need to level fund services no matter what the cost is. And it just, the two don't equate, so we're in a situation that if they don't reduce their assessment, then we're gonna be looking for
Override.
an override of, 200, I'm guessing at this point, $200,000. Now, I went to a meeting, Peter and I were both at a meeting back about a month ago on a Saturday morning. We spent 4 hours there going through the entire Triton budget. At that time, they indicated that Raleigh would face an assessment increase of $400,000. And that there was a good chance that it wouldn't be that high because they were gonna be powering the budget somewhat. Well, normally in years past, all the years I worked on the budget, Triton comes in with a figure in the beginning, that's their maximum figure, and then they do some powering down from there. And we don't always come to 100% agreement, but we get something that's close to acceptable to everybody. This year, 2 weeks later, Joe Perry, who goes to the school committee meetings, gets a budget. Peter probably got the same one, and all of a sudden they went from 400,000 to 440,000. And then the latest one they sent us a week or two ago was they had gone to from 400 to 440 to 500,000. So every time they meet for budgets, they're increasing our assessments, which is totally divergent from what the process has been in the past. So, we're waiting tomorrow night is if they vote the budget, and some of it I think is based on, I don't know what the Triton Regional Agreement has certain timelines in there, so I'm not sure if tomorrow night is a timeline or not. In the past years, we have agreed to extend, the 3 towns have to vote, Board of Selectmen, to extend that timeline, so I don't know where that stands. But so this year it's a muddled mess in terms of the schools, and they're basically taking every available nickel. Meanwhile, the economy in the state's improved to some extent, and the governor's talking like the state budget has a 5% increase in revenues, but they're talking about level funding aid to cities and towns and a pittance of amount of money to help the schools. So we're between a rock and a hard place. So at this point, whatever we have for free cash and whatever Triton and the schools take, we're going to end up trying to divvy up the remainder of the expenses, and that's why we may end up having to make some severe cuts between now and town meeting time if things don't improve.
I know this.
Just to add one thing, Triton has a free cash certification of $756,954. And that amount the school is going to add, is going to use only $68,000 of that to offset. But it has $750,000 in free cash. So, I'm beside myself with this $200,000 increase.
Well, I wonder what the State Board of Education requires them to have a certain amount in reserves. I don't know, what.
Well, we've read a number of materials from the DOR and the DOE, and including one of the code of regulations that says that school committees can use their free cash, which goes into their excess and deficiency count, for their operating budget. So they can use that. And if they have more than 5% of their excess and deficiency of their whole budget, then they're compelled to give that money back to the cities and towns. Because it's the town's money that goes in there, so it's basically, they had a budget, but their revenues came in higher, and they didn't need to use all the money they had in their budget for whatever reason. We don't know why it's so high. It seems unusually high.
According to Massachusetts Code of Regulation 603 CMR 41.00 states the following: a regional school committee may use all or part of the certified balance in the excess and deficiency fund as a revenue source for its proposed budget. So, and again, you know, the $498,000 assessment to the town this year, it's 83% of our new growth in tax levy.
Yeah, we're not arguing, we're not trying to say the schools don't need the money. I know special ed takes a huge chunk.
Yeah.
In the meeting that Peter and I were at, for instance, the superintendent mentioned the fact that there's a special needs student who moved out of the district and saved the district $160,000 for that one student in a year. But that, by the same token, you can have 1, 2, 3, or 4 students move into the district, and they have to come up with funds to pay for those students.
But that really goes.
That's why if you notice in Newburyport, if you read the Newburyport News, they're $500,000 in deficit for this year. Most of it's related to special needs students coming into the district, which, you know, they don't anticipate, but we, whether it's their district, our district, or whatever, are required to pay for, and that's fine, but it's a matter of where does the money come from. And, you know, special needs, you know, I think most of us agree that special needs really needs to be mostly funded on a statewide level, because whether Raleigh gets hit with it, or Ipswich, or Newburyport, or City of Boston, I mean, it's, those students move around, and it's something that should be shared by, you know, consumers, taxpayers throughout the Commonwealth, not just a particular town that a particularly needy student lives
That's why
in.
in my letter I wrote to Bruce Tarr, I mentioned that part
Yeah.
about this state, you know. with
It's a
that.
battle that goes on every year, and it's just, you know.
So I brought this up tonight at the Tri-Town meeting. So the enrollments have steadily decreased. In FY05, the enrollment was at Triton 3,444 students. In FY15, the enrollment was 2,678. Over the past 10 years, the enrollment has gone down by 766 students. Raleigh's assessment in '05 was $5,837,226. Again, student enrollment at that time was 3,444 students. Raleigh's FY15 assessment is $8,445,350. Again, the school enrollment is down to $2,678. Steadily, I mean, we've lost 766 students, and yet the budget keeps.
It's
You know,
difficult.
it's, the state's not putting their fair share in either.
Right,
You
I
know,
think
it's
it's-
like flat, you know, it's been flat for the last 10 years.
The state in the
essentially,
last
you know.
10 years has completely shifted around. They're putting more onus on the school budgets on the towns. They've also cut, I don't have the figures, and I'm not sure Debbie has them readily available, but if you look at the cherry sheet figures for reimbursements to the cities and towns, they've also dropped dramatically. So more and more of all these expenses that were handled by the state, and the mandated expenses that under state law are supposed to come from the state revenues have been shifted to the cities and towns. And, you know, we're the bottom of the barrel, and we're the ones, this is what's a little bit aggravating with the school budget, is we are the bottom of the barrel. And the school at this point is treating us much like the state treats us, saying, well, this is what we need to spend, and somehow you guys gotta figure out how you're gonna fund it. And it just gets totally aggravating when year after year, we go through this process of trying, and in the past, the schools have worked cooperatively with us. This year, they've just taken the attitude that this is what they want, this is gonna be our cost, and unless they change something in the next week, they don't even wanna talk, they haven't given us the opportunity to even talk about it, or discuss it, or present our point of view. So this is where the frustration comes in, that we haven't had in the last few years, because we've been able to, previous times, we've worked cooperatively, and, you know, we've come to agreements that we can all live with, and that's the idea of sitting down and communicating with each other, and the lack of communications is just,
President,
and then Peter's seen it in the meetings hasn't been able to attend, and they haven't held to work these things out. You know, at least if they listen to you, you may not agree in the end, but at least that they've heard, because the schools is, you know, they're required, they want to give the best education they can to the students, but at the same time, it's the best education within the money that's available. And if the money's not available, then, you know, we're gonna sacrifice library, the, you know, police, fire, those major budgets are
Absolutely.
we're gonna end up, with just the lack of replacing, you know, capital equipment and things like that, so.
We have snow.
There's no room. Snow and ice, yeah, snow and ice is just, you know, at this point is right out of sight.
Well, if Triton used the 700,000, would that make our assessment fall around the 300,000
Well, I
and
think
therefore
in other words,
be
if they were to cut their
more
budget
acceptable?
300,000, and it's a complicated formula, so it doesn't exactly work out to $100,000 for each town, but they would be required to give each town, in theory, $100,000. Like I say, it doesn't work out because Salisbury's increasing assessment is a lot lower than Newbury's and
Right.
Raleigh's, but it
theirs
would
is
be-
3, ours is 6.
It would be around, $300,000 cut in there, so if they were to take 300,000 of their excess and deficiency fund, or their free cash, or whatever the term is being used, that would drop us somewhere around 100,000, and like I say, it's a complicated formula based on student enrollment. The state has, you know, formulas and stuff, but that's the kind of budget that we'd be looking for.
But don't you think that's
Yeah.
somewhat of a Band-Aid for this year, and that if their budget stays what it is, that next year we're gonna be in the same situation
Well,
we
I
are
mean,
this year?
what happens year after year is, and we all face this, you know, the retirement cost, the health insurance cost, those kinds of figures just keep going up.
Right.
Everybody gives raises. I mean, in Raleigh, we're giving a 1% cost of living raise, and we're giving on the new personnel plan that we adopted last year, we're giving a 1.25. So we're giving our employees a 2.25% raise, which is within the 2.5% that we're allowed to increase taxes. So we're actually doing less, you know, giving the employees giving a raise within what we're allowed to raise the limits. Now, I don't know, Triton supposedly settled their contract, and I don't know what they're given for. They were talking in the information that they gave Peter and I, that they were maybe a 2% raise, and then most of the teachers get a step increase. They got 12 or 14 steps, so I don't know what their total personnel costs, but I mean, that's, you know, it's a fact of life. And, you know, people out in the community say, well, how come my taxes keep going up? Well, it's because everything else goes up, fuel, lights, you know, all these, we all have, the schools and us. That's why it's critical for us to say to the schools, look, you know, we understand your expenses are going up, but so aren't ours. And we need, you take all our money, what are we supposed to do?
I know the schools,
How do we get by?
the schools didn't wanna, I mean, they didn't wanna go into the GIC, but I'm looking where they have like a 7.5%. They're giving themselves a 7.5% increase for their health insurance. I can tell you, cause I'm with the state, that the GIC has not gone up 7.5%. So that's a big part of their budget is their health insurance.
It's going up, I think,
So-
1%. I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know
they
what's
get-
wrong.
I heard that on the
We
radio.
haven't gotten ours in
We
yet.
haven't got our figure in
We're
yet, but-
waiting for it. And Karen Summit did do an analysis on retiree health insurance. There are a number of retirees who retired, took early retirement, so between the ages of 55 and 65, and they're on the HMOs. They're not on the medics. So you have retirees that are getting the full, health insurance coverage. So those are costs that they need to look at. And additionally, I mean, that's something you don't have to negotiate. Now, if they're paying 70-30 ratio to retirees, they can easily make a change to 50-50. They can do that. That's not anything to do with union negotiations. And they'll save hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when we look at the budget and we ask, is this going to the children or is it going to benefits? You will see a number of increases that are related only to benefits. In Rowley, as you know, we pay 52.5 and the 47.5. So that's a very, that's tight. And we're one of the only towns around that does that. So it's very difficult to sit at the table and look at employees when they know what the Triton Regional School District gets in benefits. And I think that, as Bob Snow said, looking at the analysis of student enrollment is dropping, yet the budgets are going up at unsustainable levels. And I think where you're gonna see it is, yes, there's special education increased costs, and the cost of all kinds of specialists and things like that, but also the benefits. And there is flexibility to make changes that aren't necessarily negotiated. And they can also switch to the GIC under the state healthcare law.
Or they want to, they were saying that their plan was cost effective, because I remember them saying that, but I'm looking now.
But not this
Because
fiscal
I'm
year.
seeing that this year, when they're projecting to
Cross
go up
is up.
8%, yeah,
Blue Cross is up, so,
so,
One of the,
you know, they could change. They could do that. Excuse me.
one of the things we really forget, we always said the money's coming from the town. The money's not coming from the town. The money's coming from the taxpayer. You know, the average person out there that works hard and expects the town and the schools and the state and the federal government to do what's right. This taxpayer this year is gonna get hit with an enormous, from the Affordable Care Act, their personal health care, you name it, you add up all that, and what is the taxpayer in their job, in the private sector, going to get for a pay raise? That pay raise this year is gonna be eaten up. We have to remember that. I mean, again, it comes the taxpayer to the town and then is dispersed. We need to meet with the schools and the towns and the state and to sit there and look at this, you know, and I said this tonight, and Dave hears me all the time, I get very frustrated. Larry, you heard me the other night, and I do get frustrated about this. We forget about the taxpayer, the average guy and gal that works hard and pays that money out. They're gonna get hit really hard this year. And I feel for them, and I walk around town, I talk to the people, and I listen to them, and a lot of people hurting out there, and a lot of people on fixed incomes. And again, you know, let's think about the person who gives us the money to fund all this.
You know, a lot of the private sector, they're lucky to get a cost of living increase.
Absolutely.
If they get that, a merit increase, you know, for the last 5 years,
Gone. Yeah.
out the window.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're lucky to have a job. You know, you want more money, get a second job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's not an unlimited source of income out there.
I get very frustrated. I was listening to the radio. I probably shouldn't listen to the radio as I'm driving. And today I heard they want to raise the gas tax. One state. And you know what they want to do it? For potholes. It's a pothole tax. When are they gonna stop? I mean, the poor taxpayer, think of them. Instead of just automatically go out there and just say, oh, we got an idea, a tax. I got a tax for this, I got a tax for that. Legislatures, both at the state and the federal, have to wake up. All right, I have to get off my soapbox.
Okay, any other discussion on when we should meet next?
2 weeks.
Boy.
Yeah, I think we have to see what the school does.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
2 weeks.
2 weeks would be the 25th, which pushes awful close
We'll have more
to,
budgets ready by,
Yeah,
you know,
I've got
what
the
the
whole
problem you're
set.
gonna run into is you're dealing with the easy budgets.
Oh, I know.
And
Yeah.
the way, from what I'm seeing here is when you get into police, fire, highway, I think you're gonna have lots of questions and lots of concerns, but you may wanna bring, and I'm gonna, you know, from what I see happening here is we're not able to answer all these questions that, like, say, the police chief, for instance, when you start going through their budget line by line, he really is gonna need to be here and answer those detailed questions. So you're gonna get into some time-consuming, these bigger budgets are gonna be time, let alone what the articles, and we get into capital purchase
Yeah.
articles and so on.
you say that
I recommend
they're
every
trying to
week
get
is-
the meeting for tomorrow postponed to the 18th? Or to the 7th, to the 18th.
Letter up there to the schools to request that the vote be put off for a week.
Oh, so that would be till the 19th.
I believe it's the 19th.
so
Okay.
is there any answer what they're gonna do?
But they just voted it tonight.
Oh, we
then.
just voted
Yeah.
So
tonight.
they can't
Yeah.
deliberate
Yeah,
until
try time.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll have to
So,
decide tomorrow. But I mean, if you can, I would recommend if you can get rid of as many of these small budgets, that we We should have a bunch more, I would say,
We have
ready
a
for
s-
next week.
yeah.
Get them out of the way.
Yeah, I would
because-
like to meet on the 18th if that's,
But what is
Okay.
the plan? Worst case, the school goes forward with their budget.
Well, I mean, the worst case
So then
is-
do we have two budgets that we're going with?
No, we-
For
No.
town meeting in case
Well,
the override doesn't
the
pass?
problem, here's the problem that comes up is, let's say that the override is, we need to get to fund their budget and not kill our budget, we need to override for $200,000. So we put that override on the budget, I mean, on the ballot. Now, come town meeting, we have to approve their Triton budget, or the override, if we disapprove the budget at town meeting, and 2 out of the 3 towns disapprove it, then they don't have a budget.
Right.
We could still have the override, and if the override should pass, we would have a method of funding a budget in the future, but at this point, we would not have a school budget, so the school committee, I believe, my wife said yesterday, they have like 30 days, if the town, if the 3 towns disapprove the budget, they have 30 days to meet and approve a new budget. They can approve the same budget, they can approve a budget $1 less, they can approve a budget $500,000 less, it's entirely up to them. Whatever they then approve, we then have to schedule another town meeting to approve that budget. So it's a complicated,
Right.
process.
But in the past, haven't we voted the override at the ballot before the town meeting? So that we know?
No, just one year we did because of the way the calendar was set up, but
But-
it's,
2000,
the last override we did for the schools did happen to fall before the town meeting, and then the Board of Selectmen at that time got accused of all kinds of malfeasance because we were trying to stunt the vote.
what's that, 2000?
But I mean, normally we have the election, in normal cycle is the election is always after the town meeting. So we're really in a position of, we have to wait and see what the schools do. Selectmen will make a decision about whether we have an override, or whether if we have some free cash, we strip that down to nothing, or do we cut some of the budgets? It may be a combination of things, but until we know what the figure is and we have a better idea of what the free cash is gonna be, what the snow and ice is gonna come out of the free cash, so if we're $250,000 short on the snow and ice, that comes right off the top, so there's all kinds of variables here, and like I say, we're talking possibly some more snow Thursday morning,
Right.
so we just don't know, so it'd be nice to be able to tell you, but
As
it's a week-to-week proposition.
As I recall from 3 years ago when we had the shortfall, and we were in a position where we needed an override, and we put their override, I think it was $234,000, I think, for that sum. And there was an A budget and a B budget.
Right.
Okay, and then we came up with a shortfall, and we reduced every department by 2.5%, right across the board. Every department had it reduced. That was $237,000, if I remember correctly. So you're looking at something like a decrease in every department, probably 2.75%, something like that. That's my guess.
But it's all up in the air until, we
Right.
really need to see what the school budget right now is driving what our
No.
final budget is gonna be.
But that's why I don't I understand approving budgets, but then it seems like we may be back to square one. And until
Well,
we know what's going on, big picture, seems like it's fine to say these are level funded or stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that they should be the ones that continue funding the way they are, and then another budget gets hit because we
So
haven't.
if in fact we come up with a shortfall, then we will have to come back
Revise
and
guidelines.
revise all the budgets
We
again.
will.
I mean, all we can do now is move forward as if everything's hunky-dory. And what the departments need, and as soon as we find out something different, if we have to go back and make adjustments, then that's what we have to do. So it's complicated no matter how we do it, and this is the frustration that we as a Board of Selectmen face, and you people are starting to face it now, is how do you put together a budget when you really don't know what the final
Well, the
bottom
biggest
line
piece
is
is
gonna be.
missing,
So,
right.
all we do is fit the pieces together, and if we have to go back and, like Bob says, reduce every budget by 2% or whatever,
Yeah,
then maybe that's what we'll have to do, but.
Not 2.75, but 2.25.
Yeah, whatever it would be, but I mean, we just gotta keep moving forward until we run into a roadblock, and then we look and reassess what we do and how we do it, so.
And the other thing I remember, we need a fire truck. We need a ladder truck.
Desperately.
Yeah, but we need a fire station for us to fit it.
No, we can fit it.
Not really. You get special, you have to buy special size and it ends up
They've
costing.
got a nice new one that will
We
fit.
can fit it in there.
Yeah.
They have to do some alterations too, but that's another story.
Yeah.
First, that's 730, but it's an override, debt exclusion override, $730,000 for a ladder. So, but that's something we need.
We can't keep borrowing other towns.
I agree.
Newbury needs a fire truck too.
They need an engine, a pumper.
Mm.
They need that's about 450,000 for that. But they have a list. Joe gave it to me tonight. I mean, he read it off and he went through what his town needs, and it was just like really eye-opening.
But there
I get-
should be, well, something like that, I mean, you should be able to share resources with other towns, because how often do we get a fire that, you know, is gonna be used? I mean, you're not gonna, I think the odds of Newbury and Raleigh having a big fire at the same time are
We have-
probably very
I-
remote, you know, for,
What is it, 11% of the town is commercial property? And we have an obligation to protect people's property. And at a fire, you know, I ride with the guys every once in a while, and I've learned, picked up some things. You know, you require a ladder because you need to get water on top of the fire.
mhm.
You know, people, I know people say, well, why do we need a 100-foot ladder? No, you need a 100-foot ladder because you're gonna get that ladder up over the fire and down on the fire to put the fire out. Obligation to, you know, to save people's property. And
No, the
people's
fire
lives, more than
at
anything else.
Central Street, they had 6 different towns represented there.
Right.
The fire engine will be an override. If people don't want
Yeah.
it, they'll vote it down. I mean, it's the people's choice. You know, we're gonna put it on
Yeah.
the ballot, I'm assuming we'll vote to
Right.
put it on the ballot, and then if people decide they don't want a ladder truck, they vote it down, once again, we'll make do with what we
Yeah.
have, and so on and so, but I mean, that's why if we
Send
add,
the Triton Glee Club.
we
to
had a
it.
debt exclusion for the fire truck, and then we add a $200,000 override for the budget to fund the schools.
Yeah.
We're asking people for a huge amount of increase in their taxes over and above.
Did you
what-
just say 740,000 for a
But-
ladder truck though?
Yes.
Yes, that's what it costs.
Yeah.
But when you have to remember that the fire engine, once it's paid off, it goes away. Okay, it's not like the schools.
Right.
Schools, once that's there, it's there every year. The fire engine's different, it's a debt exclusion override,
Yeah.
okay?
Engine one is paid for this year. We
Right.
don't pay for it
Right.
next year.
Right.
And the other thing we're doing is we're looking, it's gonna be an article at this point, looking for $100,000 to do a study for the police and fire station,
Which is so needed,
which we desperately need both, so.
absolutely.
And that's gonna be ultimately, you know, if it all goes well, a year from now, we'll be looking for a debt exclusion to fund, I don't know, $6, $7, $8, $9 million
But we,
public safety facility. So I mean, it's just that the bills never stop, the needs never stop. It's just,
Right.
you know, hopefully we can convince people to dig in their pockets a little deeper and pay for it. If they don't, then we're not gonna have it.
But in
That's really
terms
where
of-
we are.
And the way to look at it, think about if we had, 10 years ago, had passed the public safety building. If we were to refinance that at a low interest rate, we would be sitting pretty right now. And you know, think of it, when you look at it, right now, interest rates are low. This is an ideal time to do what you need to do. It's like your house. If you need something, a certain room to have it done over, this is the time to do it because interest rates are low. You run your town like you run your house.
the same token, I'm just gonna say this, I don't, maybe it's not popular for everybody, but we also need a new elementary school. I mean, the Raleigh is 1960, it's old. The other communities all have much
No, we don't.
newer schools.
I beg to differ with you,
You
Peter.
know.
Bob, Mary, and I met with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, and what the plan is sometime in the next year, hopefully, we'll start working on a plan to modernize and do some renovation. They don't need a new school. The school population is down. We need to modernize that building. That's what, and the school building assistance program has programs now where they will refund us 50 to 60%. Once again, it's still gonna cost us some money, but we're not looking at a whole entire brand new school. We're looking
But the state pays part of that too.
yeah,
You
they'll pay
you know,
half of
from,
it or whatever the percentage is, but at the same time, if it's a, $6 or $7 million renovation project rather than a $30 million school, we're gonna still have to come up with, on top of all these other priorities we have, to fund that, and we need to do it. The Pine Grove School, the boiler's in tough shape, the roof needs work, we've certainly got our money's worth out of it, but we also have not put the town has not put any money. We own that building, the school doesn't own that building, we own it.
Right.
And we have not really put any substantial amount of money in there in a number of years, so that's another one of these capital projects that we are now starting to look at, and we're gonna have to do, or at least, once again, present it to the taxpayers, hopefully they'll, but you add all these multi-million-dollar projects together, it's gonna take this is where we get back to, it's gonna take cooperation between us and the school department to try and keep the budgets low, work together so that we can convince people that, yeah, we do need to put some money into the school, yeah, we do need a public safety facility, we do need a fire station, and so on and so forth. And it's a very frustrating coordination going on at this point. If we can't work together on a school budget, town budget, then it's gonna be very difficult to work together to put all these big capital projects together and convince the people that they're putting their money into worthwhile expenditures. That's enough for me.
All right, let's end the discussion on the meeting date, see if we can agree on the 18th, 7:15, next week,
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Mhm.
okay.
Same time, same place,
You got it.
1 week. Okay. The only other thing is, if anyone out there would like to join this illustrious team and help us out, we would appreciate it. There is one opening. And if you're interested, send or contact any of the selectmen or Joan Peterson, the moderator. We'd appreciate your help.
Could I just add to that, Larry, and I mentioned it at the selectmen's meetings, that we're not looking for necessarily people that are banking people or accountants. We're looking for interested taxpayers with common sense and are willing to do a little bit of work to benefit their town. You don't have to be a financial expert to be in the finance committee. We're not finance committee isn't building budgets, it's reviewing budgets.
Right.
Looking at expenditures and.
Or if you have a
adding
child in
another voice to the whole
Triton or
budget
Pine
process,
Grove
so-
and want to have a say-so and,
Yeah, I mean, you're helping your town to, with its, decide its financial future, so we're looking for citizens with good common sense that wanna get involved and wanna be actively involved. You don't have to be a banker or a lawyer or, an accountant or have a strong financial background. That's not what the committee's about, so.
right,
If you
thank
got that, that's wonderful, we'll take it, but obviously, those people don't seem to be lining up, so we're looking for any kind of people that are willing to come in and with comments, like you people. A good cross-section of the town is what we're looking for, so that there's various views, and everybody has a little bit of expertise to give, and that's what we're looking for, on the finance committee as well as other boards that have vacancies on. Thank you, again.
Okay.
Give me my soapbox back.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second time.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you and good night.